Welcome to Keep the Faith Ministry News. Pope Francis issued a historic apology Monday for the Catholic Church's cooperation with Canada's catastrophic policy of Indigenous residential schools, saying the forced assimilation of Native peoples into Christian society destroyed their cultures, severed families, and marginalized generations. Quote, "I am deeply sorry," Francis said to applause from school survivors and Indigenous community members gathered at a former residential school south of Edmonton, Alberta. He called the school policy a disastrous error that was incompatible with the gospel and said further investigation and healing is needed. Quote, "I humbly beg forgiveness for the evil committed by so many Christians against the Indigenous peoples," Francis said. In the first event of his week-long penitential pilgrimage, Francis traveled to the lands of 4 Cree nations to pray at a cemetery and then deliver the long-sought apology at nearby powwow ceremonial grounds. 4 chiefs escorted the pontiff in a wheelchair to the site near the former Ermineskin Indian residential school and presented him with a feathered headdress after he spoke, making him an honorary leader of the community. Francis' words went beyond his earlier apology for the deplorable abuses committed by missionaries and instead took institutional responsibility for the Church's cooperation with Canada's catastrophic assimilation policy, which the country's Truth and Reconciliation Commission said amounted to a cultural genocide. More than 150,000 Native children in Canada were forced to attend government-funded Christian schools from the 19th century until the 1970s in an effort to isolate them from the influence of their homes and culture. The aim was to Christianize and assimilate them into mainstream society, which previous Canadian governments considered superior. Ottawa has admitted that physical and sexual abuse was rampant at the schools, with students beaten for speaking their native languages. That legacy of that abuse and isolation from family has been cited by Indigenous leaders as a root cause of the epidemic rates of alcohol and drug addiction now on Canadian reservations. The discoveries of hundreds of potential burial sites at former schools in the past year drew international attention to the schools in Canada and their counterparts in the United States. The revelations prompted Francis to comply with the Truth Commission's call for an apology on Canadian soil. Catholic religious orders operated 66 of the country's 139 residential schools. Quote, "I've waited 50 years for this apology, and finally today I heard it," survivor Evelyn Korkmaz said. "Part of me is rejoiced, part of me is sad, part of me is numb." She added, however, that she had hoped to hear a work plan from the Pope on what he would do next to reconcile, including releasing church files on children who died at the schools. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, who last year apologized for the incredibly harmful government policy, also attended, along with other officials. As part of a lawsuit settlement involving the government, churches, and approximately 90,000 survivors, Canada paid reparations that amounted to billions of dollars being transferred to Indigenous communities. Canada's Catholic Church says its diocese and religious orders have provided more than $50 million in cash and in-kind contributions and hope to add $30 million more over the next 5 years. While the Pope acknowledged blame, he also made clear that Catholic missionaries were merely cooperating with and implementing the government policy, which he termed the colonizing mentality of the powers. Notably, he didn't refer to 15th century papal decrees that provided religious backing to European colonial powers in the first place. Jeremy Burgeon, a church apology expert and professor of religious and theological studies at Conrad Grebel University College in Waterloo, Ontario, said Francis made clear he was asking forgiveness for the actions of members of the church, but not the institution in its entirety. Quote, "The idea is that, as the body of Christ, the church itself is sinless," he said via email. "So when Catholics do bad things, they are not truly acting on behalf of the church," Burgeon added. noting it's a controversial idea on which many Catholic theologians disagree. Quote, although Christian charity was not absent, and there were many outstanding instances of devotion and care for children, the overall effects of the policies linked to the residential schools were catastrophic, Francis said. What our Christian faith tells us is that this was a disastrous error, incompatible with the gospel of Jesus Christ. The 6-day visit, which also includes stops in Quebec City and Iqaluit, Nunavut in the far north, follows meetings Francis held in the spring at the Vatican with First Nations, Metis, and Inuit delegations. Those encounters culminated with Francis' apology April 1st for deplorable abuses at residential schools and a promise to do so again on Canadian soil. Francis recalled that one of the delegations gave him a set of beaded moccasins as a symbol of children who never came back from the schools and asked him to return them in Canada. Francis said in these months they kept alive my sense of sorrow, indignation, and shame, but that in returning them he hoped they can also represent a path to walk together. Quote, the Roman Church now presents a fair front to the world, covering with apologies her record of horrible cruelties. She has clothed herself in Christ-like garment, but she is unchanged. Every principle of the papacy that existed in past ages exists today. The doctrines devised in the darkest ages are still held. Let none deceive themselves. The papacy that Protestants are now so ready to honor is the same that ruled the world in the days of the Reformation, when men of God stood up at the peril of their lives to expose her iniquity. She possesses the same pride and arrogant assumption that lorded it over kings and princes and claimed the prerogatives of God. Her spirit is no less cruel and despotic now than when she crushed out human liberty and slew the saints of the Most High. Great Controversy, page 571. This is Keep the Faith Ministry News. Thank you for watching.